It's a really wet and rainy day today, so I decided I'm going to do a little bit longer project. This one is going to be a sliding door console. These are really popular, and I've got a couple people who are ordering these right now. So I'm going to give you the plans and give you, basically an idea of what we need and how we're going to do it. And then I'll show you how to build it. So, get ready. Get your notepads out. The first thing you're going to need for supplies is 2 half-inch plywood sheets. I prefer to use birch plywood. It's a little more expensive, but the end result is always a lot better. The wood almost never bows or anything like that. The crappy SYP wood you can get is just not good at all. And if you're trying to make this like an actual hardwood, then by all means go get a hardwood plywood. You just need 2 sheets of half-inch, so you can probably order that for a couple $100 or so. But regular birch half-inch plywood should run you about $32 a sheet. We're gonna need 7 1x6 boards, and we're gonna rip some of those down to 5 inches. And then we need 4 1x2s and 2 1x4s is what the plans call for. Now, I hate buying 1x4s because they're all crap. You can have a pile of 700 sticks and one of them will be straight. So instead, I got 1x4s that are drying behind me, and if they don't end up twisting or anything like that, then I'm going to end up ripping out my own 1x2s because I just prefer it that way. So, 1 1/4 inch wood screws. As far as tools, you're going to need a table saw, a drill, a driver. You're going to need, I would say it's probably a good idea to have a 18 gauge brad nailer, but that's kind of, dependent on your style, give or take. I would also have a circular saw handy, because if whatever we don't end up doing on the table saw, we're probably going to end up cutting with a circular saw. Obviously some nice sharp blades, pencil, measuring tape, all that kind of stuff that you normally use for these kind of projects. And we're going to end up making our own hardware for this barn door. So when we talk about that later, I would recommend having a couple of metal drilling bits that are big enough to fit your hardware and a drill press. And we'll talk about all that later. As far as what you'll need for that. So that's going to be it for the tools and the hardware you're going to need. So again, go ahead and go get all your stuff for building the cabinet itself. We'll talk about the sliding door hardware later, and we'll go ahead and get started making our cuts. So that's where we're going to start with our cuts. I've got the plywood cut out, and we're going to build our carcass of the, the main frame of the box. We're going to get that built first, and then I've also got the top pieces cut over there, so we're going to laminate those together and glue them up and leave them off to the side so that they can be drying. So we're going to go ahead and put these together, and I'll show you how to do that. And then we'll get to cutting for all of our trim and all the front face and all that. Alright, so now that we've got our top and bottom pieces laid out, what we're going to do is go ahead and put some screws in the ends here. So we're going to put a little bit of glue on the end, and then we're just going to stick it right up against this, and we're going to pre-drill our holes, and then I'm going to use 1-inch drywall screws, coarse thread, through the pre-drilled holes. I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to set it up that way. The reason I'm not doing pocket holes is because I never, ever have good luck with pocket holes and plywood, so I'm not doing that. But we're going to fill these in with a little bit of wood filler, and they'll be on the side where they'll be kind of hidden anyway, so don't worry about it. This is why I recommend having the brad nailer. I've got 1-inch brad nails in here. I'm going to stand this up, pop a couple nails in it first, which will keep it in place, and then I'm going to put the screws in it off the edge of the table. Alright, so we've got the top on, now we're going to add the bottom. And the way we're going to do that is by taking the 2 strips we cut earlier, thin strips, we're going to stand them up, one here, one here. And I like to just make a quick little mark with my pencil, make sure it's even at both the top and the bottom, like that. Alright, now we've got the bottom on, and we're going to take our 25-inch shelf. It's going to go on each side, the left side and the right side. And for starters, I'm going to just put it all the way down here at the bottom, and then I'm going to get my center support and put it right here. So the way to set this up is pretty easy. I'm going to line up using my shelf, put it nice and tight. Make sure it's straight on that end, and then I'm going to pop in 2 shots. There we go. Alright, so we've got the center supports in. Everything's nice and level. So the next step we're going to do is put our bottom pieces here. So we're going to stick those on just about 1 inch off of the inside here, and I'm going to put a couple of pops there and then 1 or 2 screws to hold it in place. So as soon as you get these pinned in place, we're going to pre-drill just a little bit. One in the back. One in the front. And then we're going to sock in 2 of our drywall screws. And sock them in there. Once you've got the pieces put together and you've got the bottom supports on, we're going to leave this thing alone for a minute, let the glue on it dry. And we're going to come over here to the pieces that we cut for our top. And we're going to cut these to size, and then we're going to laminate them together. So I've already cut these down to 5 inches, and these are still 5.5 inches. So we're going to put the 2 smaller ones on the outside, 2 bigger ones on the inside, and we're going to laminate them all together, clamp them, and set them aside, and keep going on this project. Alright, so I have cut these to size. They are 78 inches long, and I've positioned the 5s, 5.5, 5.5, and 5, and that's going to give me 21 inches if you do your math correctly. Also, I don't know if you can tell, but my grain up, down, up, down. Alright, pretty easy. So now the issue is I changed my mind. I'm not going to laminate these together because I just realized I have a solid surface here. So instead of worrying about expanding and contracting and all that kind of stuff, I'm literally just going to screw these to the top of this. And the reason being is because even though these will expand and contract a little bit, if I kind of center my screws and give them enough room that they can move, it's going to change with the seasons, but it's also a pretty skinny console, so it's not going to make too much of a difference. So in the effort of saving time, I'm going to just screw these directly to the top of this. Alright, so I have attached all of the top board pieces, and I have filled all the screw holes and all the cracks with a wood filler. This is a high performance 2-part wood filler. It actually works a lot better than the water-based wood fillers that I normally use. So I've got my 2-inch gap back here in the back. So this takes about 30 minutes to set up. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step. Alright, so let's put in these shelves. So I got my 25-inch shelves here. Alright. So I'm going to measure from 30 and a half, cut in half is 15 and a quarter. So I'm going to mark 15 and a quarter, all 4 sides. And then we'll just tack these in. I want to put it on top of the marks I just made, because when I put the baseboard on it, it's going to go down in front. So that'll make it look a little bit nicer in my opinion. Make it look a little more evenly weighted, top to bottom. There we go. All 4 of those have brad nails holding it in place. I'm going to put a couple screws in place, and we'll go on to the next one. Alright guys, now it's time for the center shelves. So I measured 12 inches off the bottom, and now I'm going to measure, instead of 12 inches, I'm only going to do 10 inches off the top. So we have a nice thick shelf on the bottom, and thinner shelves in the middle and on the top. So mark your 10 inches on 4 corners, put your shelf in, put your screws and everything. We'll get both these shelves put in place. Alright, so this is the view from the back. The center shelves are in. So everything looks really good. I've got all the holes filled with a little bit of wood putty. So we're letting that dry. And I'm going to go eat myself some dinner because I'm hungry and it's getting late. My day got delayed a little bit because this guy decided he wanted to run away in the middle of a rainstorm. And I didn't get him back till later this afternoon, so I had to go deal with all that crap. So I'm tired, it's late, I'm going to work on this tomorrow morning. Good morning. So we are going to pick up where we left off last night. I've got some wood putty in there that's drying. They're dry now because it dried overnight. So we're going to go ahead and get that taken care of. I've got a little more space over here. I moved the table that I was working on last night into the shop in there. So yeah. So got a little late start this morning because I'm still a little friggin' sick. It's ridiculous. So eventually I'll, not be sick and tired all the freaking time. So for this project to start this morning, what I need to do is we need to go ahead and get ready to start putting the face trim on. But before I do that, I want to sand everything. So I'm going to move it over there in that front corner of the shop, get the whole top sanded, get all this epoxy stuff, or not epoxy, the 2-part filler off, and then get the water-based filler off as well. Just get it nice and smooth and cleaned up, and then we'll start working on the face. Alright, so sanding is complete. I've got a nice solid top with no gaps, no splinters, no nothing. I was able to kind of fix these edges where the boards weren't really even. Still got a little bit of hand sanding to do on these corners, but I'm not going to worry about that now because it might get dinged up a little bit more. But yeah, my 2-part filler worked really, really well. And I know this particular brand takes stain very well, so I'm not worried about the discoloration right now. Got everything else sanded off the side, so it looks real pretty, real smooth. We're gonna get to work on that face trim now. There's a couple of options you have here. One method is to, take your exact measurements, and this is still 18 1/4, which we already knew. So you can cut yourself 2 at 18 1/4 and 1 at 75 3/8, and then you add 1/2 inch to that, so 7/8. But what I prefer to do is take an existing piece, lay it down, and just measure. Put your piece there, mark it, and be done. So that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to line this up so it's perfectly square on the back here. And I'm going to mark it right here. And we cut that. Next we attach these with a little bit of glue, and I've got 1 inch 18 gauge brad nails. Pop them in there. So I'm going to do that on both sides, and then we'll do the front. Now this one's a little more challenging because I don't have a solid face to attach it to, so I can only attach it here, along the top, there, along the top, along the top, along the top, there, and there. So I'm going to be real careful with where I put my glue, just putting it here and there, and then I'm going to tack these in so that it'll hold itself in place until the glue dries. Now, because thin, crappy pine boards like this tend to bow and twist a little bit, I'm actually going to go ahead and set 2 screws in this one on each end, and that's going to help prevent it from twisting, at least while the glue is drying. Then once the glue is dry, hopefully we shouldn't have any issues anyway, but just to be safe, we'll sock these in here real quick, and I'll put some wood glue or wood putty on. And there we go. Now the front face is attached, nice and tight. And then just to be sure that I don't have any movement here, I'm going to pop in a couple of brads. And we are good to go there. Alright, so the next thing we're going to work on is the top. So I'm going to put a piece that goes from this edge all the way to that edge, and then I've got one of my scrap pieces here that's almost the perfect size to fit there, but I've got to cut it down so that I can have the top of the support going across. Now it's very important that the top goes from corner to corner, because that's what's going to be supporting my track for the barn doors that are going to be sliding back and forth. So let me get on that, and again, you can measure with a tape measure and cut precisely if you'd like, or you can do like I'm going to do, where I'm going to put my piece up here first and go, wow, that's fancy, and mark it, and that's going to be where I cut. And then as soon as I'm done with that, I'm going to attach a post here a post here, and a post there. And what I'm going to do on these edges, I'll show you using this scrap, is I'm going to line up my furthest most edge with the edge of the piece out here, okay? And I'm going to rip these down to half their size, okay? Here, I'm going to keep them full size and line it up so it's directly in the middle. I'm going to do the same thing on that side of the center, and then on the far side, I'm going to do the opposite of what I did over here, also ripping it in half. So, write all that down. Go back and rewatch that part if that was confusing, but I'm going to cut, rip, install, and go from there. Alright, so faces on the top, faces on the bottom, all that stuff's around, those are screwed in. These are also screwed in just because, again, nice big boards might twist, I don't know. So you can see here I ripped down a 1x4 into two 1x2s, and they came out to about 28.5 inches, so, or I'm sorry, 28 3/4 inches between each board, but they're, I mean, anything from a 32nd to a 16th of an inch off from each other, so I wouldn't just cut 4 unless you're exactly precise. But I got them real tight fit, which is good. These are just regular 1x4s. I didn't cut these. So with a single 1x4 board, I was able to cut a 28-inch section, rip it into 1x2s, and then cut 2 more 28-inch sections that I didn't have to rip. So that's all done. So the next thing I'm going to do is take some of the other pieces that I had, and we're going to do the same thing here with more 1x2s. I may have to rip another one, but I'm going to measure this distance, and we're going to put these on the faces here, here, and here. Now you should wind up with this one and this one should match, and this one and this one should match perfectly, but you know, you never know. So I'm going to do that real quick, same process. Alright, final step and we are done. So this thing is fully framed out. I'm going to go through, do some of that 2-part putty, fill in all these holes, all these screw holes, and you know, all these cracks. Again, I like the 2-part because it is a lot more solid. It's like Bondo on a car, as opposed to the powdery water-based stuff. So for the heavy-duty stuff, anywhere where there might be just a tiny little bit of movement in the future, I want to put that stuff down. So I'm going to do that, and then I can give it a full final sanding, get rid of the rest of these little burrs and everything. But before I do that, the last step I need is a base for my track, my bottom track. So I've got a 2x4. It's already been planed. So it's actually just slightly less than its normal dimensions by about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to rip it down to 2.5 inches so that it's shorter than this. And then I'm going to miter the 2 ends so that it's not so crazy looking. And then when I put my U-channel on here, it'll look really nice. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to cut it just like I did the board on the bottom. I'm going to measure it end to end. And in fact, I've already marked it there with my pencil. So I'm going to cut that, I'm going to rip it, I'm going to attach it with some big long screws, and that's going to be it for the base. Alright, bottom board is attached, so that is good. Everything is pasted up and gross looking, so give me about an hour for that to all cure and dry. I did end up using some regular wood filler for some of the small holes, as well as the 2-part wood filler for all the deep holes and the big stuff. I had some damage over here as well that I went ahead and filled in because I know from experience I can glob this crap on, and then when I sand it off, it's going to be beautiful. So that looks awesome. We're going to get started on the door. Now for this project, we're going to do some pretty simple doors. I normally like to do my doors with a couple of rabbet half laps and you know, inset wood and all that kind of stuff, but we're going to make this simple. So I've got some 1/4 inch plywood back here, and then I've got the rest of my 1x6s and 1x4s over there in the corner. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut this into 2 door sections that are going to be 30 inches by 24 inches, and those are going to be the back face of our doors. And then we're going to cover those with supports, and the supports are what are going to give the door the rigidity that it will be lacking from not having, you know, the laps and the actual cabinet style routing and whatnot. So I got the tops and bottoms cut, and what I'm going to do, make sure that my grain is facing towards the door. I'm going to add some glue, and then from the back side, I'm going to pop in some 3/4 inch brad nails. And so these will hold it in place and let it dry. So I'm going to do the bottom and the top on both doors first, make sure everything's perfectly square, and then just like I did on the fronts of that piece, I'm going to do the in-betweens here and there. So these are 1x6s, and I cut them to exactly 30 inches. So you get 3 out of one board and 1 out of the next board, but we're going to use some of those scraps to rip some of the other supports later. So let's get these attached and we'll move on to the supports. Alright, so these are in place and glued. So I'm going to go ahead and get a center support put on, and then we're going to cut a 45 each way to make a cross going across that way. So let me get started on those. And again, guys, I could give you measurements, but what I'm literally going to do is just put a stick here, mark it, cut it, then I know it fits. So, I mean, with the 1x4s, you could plan on cutting it around 17 inches, but it's not going to be dead on. So, for me, it's more precision fit. I'm just going to make I'll make 2 of those, and they should fit perfectly, and then we'll make the crosses doing 45s from the top down to the middle, and from the bottom up to the middle. So just because I don't want this to be too confusing, here's what I did here. I cut this piece at 45s. I know it didn't line up directly in the center, and that's okay, because it'll work with the design. Took the same 45 end, lined it up here, and just cut this one straight. It's got a real nice tight fit there. And then I cut the ender off this piece and made it so that it lines up perfectly there. So we'll have this cross, but it'll have like a little trellis thing in the middle, which is going to be a really nice design aspect. So that's why I did it. It's very simple to just cut the 45s. We don't have to get into the 48.5 degree angles and all that kind of stuff that I would have had to do to meet dead center. So I actually prefer this design and this look, and it's going to look pretty good. So just wanted to show that, just in case it was a little confusing as to what I'm doing. Again, and what I recommend you do when you do your doors is cut your individual pieces to fit together. Don't necessarily cut all your pieces the exact same, because they just may not work. But it's up to the woodworker. So that's it. It is all done. Got my designs on the front. Nice, quick, easy doors, but these are going to be sturdy doors. I normally don't like doing the plywood backed doors, but you know, to make it easy, this works really well. And then doing boards this thick and straight that have been in here drying for a while, I know they're not going to twist or change or any of that kind of stuff. So this doesn't look pretty good, so I'm going to get these filled with some wood filler once again, and then I'm going to leave them, let the glue dry, go get some lunch. Alright, so there it is. It is all fully sanded and ready to go and looking good. I got everything smoothed out. Got my corners cleaned up real nice, so it's looking good. So all I got to do now is stain it. And oh crap, it's raining. Hold on. Crap. Okay, so anyway, update. It was raining and my planer was outside. So yeah. So tonight I'm gonna put stain on this deal. Alright, so this is a crucial part of getting your hardware. When you come to this section in your store, you want to look through here. I prefer the steel because it's going to end up being cheaper, and if you do it right, It's going to last longer, it's going to be more durable, and you're going to be able to cut it better. So what you need is a 72-inch L-bar, and this is 3/4 by 3/4 or 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, your choice, 1/8 of an inch thick. You need a 72-inch bar, 1/8 of an inch thick, and also a 48-inch bar, 1/8 of an inch thick, and these are 1 1/4 wide. Total of like $30 for all 3 of these pieces. So that's the best way to go. Now, one option for your spacers would be to get this round tube here. It's 36 inches. It's a 1/2 inch diameter tube. Now, to make this hardware, we're going to grab 4 of these 1.5 inch block and tackle pulleys. Alright, next we need to get some aluminum spacers. We're going to grab four of these. Let's grab some wood screws. We need 1 pack of number 8 3/4 inch and some number 10 by 2 inches. We only need 4, so that's actually perfect. Grab yourself a pack of 1/4 inch washers and you're good to go. That should be everything you need for the track, so if there's anything I forgot, I'll figure it out later and we'll come back and get it. Alright, so before we start cutting our metal pieces, I want to assemble the wheels. So let's get our aluminum spacers and our pulleys together, and I'll show you what we're going to do. So we start pretty simply by just assembling the pulleys. Pull out the cotter pin. And this is all just, unfortunately, waste, but there's your pulley wheel. We're going to do that for all 4 of them. There's your 4 wheels. So for the bottom part, we have this angle iron, and it's 72 inches, which is great because from point to point, here to here is 73 inches. So what we're going to do is set it in 1 inch, so we don't have to worry about cutting this, which is great, but we do have to drill some holes. So I'm going to put probably 5 holes, 2 on the ends and 3 towards the middle. And the way we're going to do that is, these are the screws I'm going to be putting in. They're a 1 inch number 8 drywall screw. And so I've got a drill bit that is the exact same size, slightly bigger actually than the threads. And then I've got a masonry bit that I use to countersink. It doesn't work well on masonry, but I've sharpened it to work well on metal. So I'm going to put these on my drill press. Alright, so we got our holes drilled and countersunk. Go ahead and wipe this down. If you used an oil to prevent it from getting too hot, wipe it down with some mineral spirits and a nice rag. Let's get that all cleaned up. And that is going to go right here. But we're not going to place it yet, only because I don't know exactly where the door is going to hang. But because of the color on this, I'm actually not going to paint this go around, because this raw steel is just a beautiful color against this brown. So that's where that's going to go, and we'll get started on the track itself. Now there's 4 posts, 1, 2, 3, 4. So on this particular model, I'm going to do 4 screws, 4 holes, 4 spacers, 4 everything. So the good news with where we're going to drill the holes for actually mounting our hardware is that even though our unit is 75 1/4 inches across, we only have 72 inches of track. But it's going to be going into this solid piece up top. So it really doesn't matter. It's not like we're trying to put it in studs and it's got to be perfect. I will say aesthetically, it would be nice to measure at least 24 inches between the two outside screw holes. So we're going to go ahead and drill from our 72-inch track, and we're going to put our two outer holes first, then measure 24 inches in, put our two inner holes, and that'll be it. Now these don't have to be countersunk, so this time I'm just drilling straight through and let that be it. Alright, so there's our top track with holes drilled, bottom track with the pre-drilled, and the countersunk. Now the fun part. We're going to take the 48-inch and we're going to cut this into 4 equal sections of 11 3/4 inches. The reason I do that is because if we have anything that breaks off or you need to shave it down a little bit, they'll all still be even and you won't run out of bar. So I'm going to mark these at 11 3/4 inches, and then we're going to saw it using a metal blade and cut some holes in it. Alright, so now that's about where we want our wheel to be, which is 1/2 inch down. So we're going to cut our top hole at 1/2 inch, and then our bottom two holes I'm going to mark just about 3/4 inch up, and then about 2 inches up from that. Now that I've got one done with the holes and everything, I'm going to go ahead and mark using this one. That way I know how far it is. I'm going to go ahead and cut these other 3 out and re-drill the holes. That way they're all perfect. And there it is. They're all cleaned up. They look good. All the holes are perfectly even. I did just like I did with the first one. Like you saw in the video, I went through and took all the burrs off the back with the wire wheel. Turned out awesome. The steel just looks phenomenal, so I'm very excited about this piece. So again, I'm going to set these aside. Alright, so I have got the tubing clamped down to the table. I've got it clamped down as tight as I really can with these clamps, but I know it's going to move. So what we're going to do differently with this is I've marked it at exactly 1 inch. We're going to put one of these pipe cutter deals on it. Sorry, my dog is hitting the camera. Why are you doing that? That's unnecessary. Alright, so I'm just double checking to make sure that it is exactly at 1 inch, and it is. So I'm going to tighten it just enough that I can get started, and I'm going to start spinning this. Oh yeah, I'm going to have to do this with 2 hands. So, but essentially, yeah, just spin this around a bunch of times, and there you go. Just keep doing it like that, slowly tightening it more and more and more, and it'll eventually cut it off at a 1 inch length. There we go. So there's not really a way to tell you to wing this other than either just wing it and hope you get it right, or try and follow this perfectly. So we have an 1/8 inch steel for our bottom track, and then we have a 1 1/4 inch, a 1 inch steel for the width of the top of our track. Now our wheels themselves are going to stand up to 1 1/4 inch. So at least under here we need at least 1 1/4 inch or more. So what I've done is I've marked this little spot here. I measured and marked exactly at 31 inches. The reason being, I want the top of the track to be at 31.5 inches. Okay? So I'm going to put this up, And the easiest way to hang this is putting one side up first and bringing the other side up. So I forgot to mention this, but the way that you put these on is by putting your number 10 screw and one washer through. Then you're going to put your spacer that you just made. And then behind that, you're going to put one more washer like that. Okay? And then we're putting the whole thing right here. Now, what I really highly recommend for this part is bring this up, and don't worry really about measuring and stuff just yet. Here's the thing. I've got a level up here. I'm perfectly level. My dead flat is perfectly level. My base is perfectly level. Everything, even if they're not perfectly level, as long as they're all the same, you're good. So what you want to do here, I'm going to rest this on the track, and I'm going to move the track until my level's perfect, and then I'm going to push that screw in a little bit. And now I'm going to go ahead and screw this in. And double check the other side. And there you go. That's perfectly level. So now your track is perfectly straight and level, and it's going to be even. Just to double check, we're exactly at 31.5. So there you go. That's the easiest and one of the best ways to get it up and make sure that it is level. So I'm going to just put these two screws straight in from here. Alright, so I got the screws in. It is level, and that track is looking awesome. So now we need to put the doors in place. Alright, because I know that the doors are going to hang out a full inch, I realize that means that my track is going to be right on the front edge right here. So as you can see, I did just like I did with the track up here. I've loosely attached one screw on that side. I'm going to bring the other side up and put it right here on the edge where I want it to be. Very crucial, since I'm so close to the edge, pre-drill. Pre-drill, pre-drill, pre-drill. It's going to make a huge difference. If you were to split the wood at this point, you're going to be mad. There we go. So the two things I forgot to tell you about at the store, you need number 10 by 24 threading at 1.5 inches. Just buy a 5-pack because you only need 4. The other thing that I could have told you to get that I forgot is a finish washer like this, where it's got this kind of dip in it. If you want to pick up 4 of those or pick up 8 of them, you can put them up here if you want, but it's not really necessary. A lot of people like to put them on the top part where their wheel goes through to get a slightly tighter fit and a nicer look. I'm going for super industrial with this, so I'm not going to use those. That's an option. But anyway, so get yourself some machine screws, number 10, 24 by 1.5 inches. Make sure you get at least a 5-pack with nuts, and that's what we're going to use to hold our wheels in place. So putting together the hardware is not that hard. We've got our bars that we cut earlier. We've got the wheels we took out of the pulleys. You have your 3/4 inch aluminum 5/16 spacer. We have the nut and bolt set we just bought, the 1024 at 1.5 inches. And you're going to need 4, count them, 4 washers. Okay, these are 1/4 inch washers. And the reason that we got 1/4 inch washers is because they will fit perfectly around your spacer, and here's why. When we go to assemble these, well, let's just go ahead and put them together and I'll show you why. So you're going to put your first washer on the bolt, and we're going to put that straight through your bar. We're going to put the aluminum spacer on. We're going to put one washer on and put it over the spacer all the way down. Then we're going to take our pulley, put it over the spacer all the way down. Take our next washer over the spacer all the way to the pulley. Our final washer over the spacer all the way to the pulley. And look at that. It sits almost perfectly flush. So now we're going to put our nut on. And we're going to tighten this down as much as we can. Now the reason this matters is because I can now tighten this nut super tight and this will still spin. Okay? That's very, very important because we don't want this to be able to move up and down. There's a lot of plans out there online that allow this wheel to still move up and down, and they're terrible. They lock up, they don't slide, they rip the paint off if you decided to paint your steel. Just absolutely horrible. So what you want to do is when you tighten this down, you're actually tightening it against that spacer. So the washers really aren't doing much of anything other than keeping the wheel in place, because that spacer is what's holding everything apart. And you can see it's going to roll on that spacer just fine like a bearing. And when you go to put it in place, now no matter how much weight you put down on it, it still rolls. And it rolls beautifully. Okay? So it's extremely crucial that we do it exactly this way. So I'm going to go ahead and put all these together. In the interest of time, I've got a delivery to go make this evening, so I'm going to show you how to install one of the doors, and then you do the exact same thing for the other door, and then just slide them, make sure they fit the way they're supposed to. So let me show you that real quick. So here's the method that I normally use. Let me get my little end here. Alright, so I've got 4 quarters. Crucial step that I always do. Take the 4 quarters and place them on the track. Make sure they're not on top of a screw. You just want to place them right there, 2 and 2. Then I'm going to take my door and position it where I want it to be when it's closed. Setting it right on top of the quarters. Lean it back. And now that thing is sitting right where I want it to sit. So my next step is to take these hangers and we're going to put them right where we want them. Now this time I want them to be positioned exactly in the center of the boards. So I'm going to put one there and one there, and we're going to get them screwed into position. Lift the door up and move it over. Take out my 4 quarters. Look at that. Slides freely, no friction. It's not loose at all. Man, that thing's awesome. Alright, so I'm going to do the second door, and then I'm going to take this whole thing apart, and I'm going to polyurethane. I shouldn't say I'll take the whole thing apart. I'm going to take all the hardware back off, polyurethane the whole thing, and the doors. I'm going to stain a backing and attach it, and then we're done. Take it to the customer. Looking pretty good.